Hello, everyone. How are we doing tonight? I am doing great. A little slow. A little slow. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Not much sleep in the last 2 days, so might be a little bit calmer tonight, but nothing wrong with that, I hope. We're gonna get straight into it. In my opinion, we had a pretty nice CPI day, right? If we look just at the morning, we had beautiful delivery to the upside, and of course, with SMT, as we always do. Let me just mark this out. I said yesterday we had SMT at the highs. To me, that doesn't showcase anything because we have yet to do our weekly distribution, our weekly expansion. So I disregarded this SMT completely. Now, this is all based off my experience. I know that when we form SMT before the news, I just see it as something that will slow me down more so than something that will indicate a reversal. That might be a little harder for a beginner to spot, but for me, I completely disregarded this SMT. Especially once we go down the time frames, you'll notice that today we had very bullish PA when we opened. Basically, I just want to go in replay mode so my indicator doesn't showcase the levels after. And let's make it simpler. For now, let's remove the PM levels. Looking at this, you have your daily open right here. Of course, as always, you also have your midnight open, which let me just plot that up. And let's actually have this be there. There we go. Looking at this, when we have our 8:30 news, well, on regular news, you would anticipate a Judas swing. Now, with CPI, I tend to do things a little bit differently because CPI often runs on side with price. I think that is the thing that I repeat the most. Most of the months, I just see CPI, form a fair value gap, and I trade that fair value gap. You would have had that opportunity right on the open, but for me, it was extremely bullish. Why? Well, on CPI, first of all, we didn't form SMT on the highs. So already to me, that is a big sign that, well, basically this high is not strong, right? So this high is just to form a Judas swing lower to then push us higher. Moreover, we formed relative equal highs right there, along with the previous buy side. If we actually go up a few time frames very quickly, along with the previous buy side, which is, if I'm not mistaken, oh no, that is not it. You also have, yeah, okay. So previous buy side, which is previous month's high. So very simply here, what did we do this month up to now, right? If we look at October and of course 1 on 1 hour, we opened low and now are expanding higher. What are our objectives? Previous time windows high. So previous month's high. As you can see on ES, we already have taken this level. Was it last week? I believe it was last week. No, earlier this week. Sorry. I'm looking at an hourly chart. But looking at this structure, even before all of these candles appear, what did we do? Well, all we did was retrace into the discount of our current expansion range. I would have referred to this larger range just because this is the range we're trading within, but this is the impulse price swing. So if you're going to be looking for a discount and efficiency, I'm going to use this range. But if I want to know what range we're currently trading within, and especially if I'm going to be utilizing standard deviations, I'm going to be referring to the full range. And so I had these levels just to give me a higher probability objectives pretty much, with that reversal range being higher, which we tapped into a few times today. But if we look here, what do we see? Well, we have a sweep of liquidity, and of course I'm going to refer to the impulse price swing, a sweep of liquidity into a discount in efficiency. I don't utilize 1 hour points of interest as levels that I trade. But if we go up to the daily very quickly, we'll notice that we closed above our objective, right? As we said in the weekly outlook, I said I wanted to see us go higher and I was ready for price to go lower, but I wanted price to continue higher. And what did we do? Well, we closed aggressively through it. That is the only indication I need that we are going to be looking for higher prices, that we are going to reach for, or at least try to reach for, this buy side liquidity. Does that make sense? I do want to take a break and just take a small pause and make sure that makes sense with all of you. Because this is very underrated. Just looking at daily closes, I get the understanding that, okay, well, now my objective is previous day high. I do understand that there is a higher objective, or else we would not have closed aggressively through this liquidity. We would have swept it to reverse. All of that is done through the understanding of how we interact with previous day and previous days levels with our current day's close. So if we have more questions around that, I'll answer them nearer to the end. What do we also see? We traded back into the wick here, rebalance this gap, which on ES we formed a fair value gap. This is also a great indication that the low is ready to be put in. And if we go to a 4-hour chart, we are within a 4-hour inefficiency if we refer to the wider range, but this is not my discount inefficiency. Although it would be nice to see a retracement all the way to that. It would have been nice, sorry, to see a retracement all the way to that 4-hour order block, right? Consecutive down close candles. Well, we did not see that today, so not the best of setups in terms that it was not using any sort of discount. But with CPI, I was not expecting it to need to go all the way down. So not the best of setups when you form on the higher time frames, but when you look purely at liquidity, you had equal highs, you swept important liquidity, which is previous PM low. This is what this level is. It's the low of the previous PM session. Swept this low at a key time. Did we have SMT? Well, not on the time frame we're currently looking at, but we did. Right, so this is just not a swing point on ES, but if we look at those candles, you'll notice. Oh wait, no, that's not the one we swept. Okay, so we'll go down in time frames and see the SMT. Sorry, guys. If we look right here, 9:30 open. Oh yeah, we had a bunch of divergence here. I'm not gonna lie, I got stopped out in here. I believe I shared it in general today, actually. I got stopped out in here. To me, that was a very nice Judah swing lower. We have no need to revisit this level specifically. And then we also had SMT right on the open. So as I always say, right, Judah swing at a key time, New York Open with SMT, that is all I need. My confirmations are there. And this time, it did not work out. I'm not always right. I don't always make money. But if you look right here, you had this. You had a beautiful breaker right here. That's all I needed with this fair value gap. Even though it's small, I don't care for size on fair value gaps at all. It does not impact how I like the setup or not. And I got trolled quite a long time here. Entered right here. Stop was right at the SMT. Targets were those relative equal highs above. Of course, we had a partial in the way. We'll speak on it in a second. But as you can see, that trade got stopped out. I got lucky and trailed my stop here. Once we had this big low right here, digging back into mean threshold of this order block that we formed at 9:30 open, that is a great indication for me. We traded back down into this order block and we're respecting it. We're confirming, that this is an order block. And once we trade into mean threshold and respect it, that is my indication that my stop loss can move up. And I'm not going to move it at mean threshold because it has the right to revisit this, but I don't want to see it close through it. And so I'm going to have it at the low of this liquidity. Got lucky and got stopped out for a little less than my full loss. Definitely some nice trade management there. But one loss to start the day. Why did we lose? Well, we had to raid more liquidity. Can I tell you exactly why? No. And to be completely honest with you guys, I really don't care. I took a loss to then see the same thing form once again. Is my idea still valid if we trade back down into here? Yes, 100%. It is allowed to go back down here before being ready to go higher. It does not change anything if it wants to go earlier or after or however actually it wants to go there. It really doesn't matter to me. So after taking this, yes, of course, I've already taken a loss, so my risk is adjusted. But if we look right here, we form a new breaker block with an overlapping. Now this time it is an inverse fair value gap right here. You could have waited for it to trade back down into this fair value gap just because of the close proximity, but I don't like to give myself the opportunity to mess around, if I can say. Because yes, this is quite a wide stop, right? Why? Because wait, fair value gap, inverse fair value gap. So actually my stop would be here. 35 handles is quite a wide stop, but does it allow for enough risk to reward? 100%. I'm happy with 3R. Of course, I could wait for it to retrace into the fair value gap lower, and then that would allow for almost one extra R. Well, actually, one extra R. But that is not interesting to me. My stats that I appreciate with my trading is my consistency, not my returns. I really don't mind about my returns. They are big enough, and I will never need more in my life. But specifically, I would never recommend for someone to wait. The only justifiable reason is that, what is this time? 9:57s. So you could have waited 3 minutes, because if you're right, well, 10 a.m. open will need to open low, right? Because if you are indeed going to go higher, well, my 4-hour structure will need to open, go form a low to then expand to our high. So I could just leverage the fact that I am currently here, right? I'm just before the open. Let's just imagine this is 10 a.m. right here. I'm just before the open. I can wait for that open low to then place my trade. And that would have came a few minutes later to enter into this fair value gap right on the 10 a.m. open. Or perhaps wait for the SMT, which let me find it here. There we go. So this not being a swing low, well, this swing low being one different on ES, but you had divergence here. And if we look even further, you also had divergence just coming out of the 950 to 1010 macro right here. That was also a very nice confirmation at this point, trading back into the 10 a.m. open. Also, I feel like a lot of people get stuck in here. So am going to speak on it, but when you see consolidation right on the open of a candle or the open of a session, right? Sometimes it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I know that is a shit explanation, but that is how I'm going to frame it. So for example, here we had higher, right? Clearly our goal was right. These are the relative equal high objective. So clearly we were right. Well, why did we just expand at 10 a.m. and just go straight forward? Well, because we opened high. We didn't form a good low. And because we didn't form that good low, we later had to revisit 10 a.m. open with SMT, which this is what I regard as my 10 a.m. low. And if you look at the candle, well, this is going to be your 4-hour candle low. But to me, it's this one. Because this is the structure that I was looking for, accumulation. And then you have your structure to form a potential low candidate. And it is that low that I'm going to be looking to be respected in the future. And of course, if you look at this PA, it definitely was a rough one here. I can't say you should have held it. I personally held it because I had an earlier entry as well. So I did take a part of it on these AFVG, and this was a scaling opportunity for me. But it is a rough one to hold. If you were really just waiting for your partial, right? How do we establish our partials? Well, easy. 5-minute chart. Before we start talking about the logic behind it, what is the current range? Well, I'm going to use CPI here. And if we look these is the 950 low. So this is what I'd be regarding to. And what is my first discount, my first premium in efficiency? It is this 5-minute fair value gap. What I like to do though is go down to a 1 minute and look for liquidity close to these levels. Is it ever going to trade into here and completely reverse? Well, I don't see it. It could, but I don't see it. And anyways, to that partial objective, it does not offer enough risk to reward for me to even consider taking a partial there. With this original stop, if you had the tighter entry, then all of a sudden this partial is enough. 1.4, I can take a partial at this point and hold until my higher objectives. But in this specific case, I could not. So looking at this, where would I be looking to take partials? Well, all of this was low resistance up until here. So this is my premium liquidity. This is what actually a friend of mine would call the logical liquidity objective, the logical liquidity target. and we hit that target at 1047 after a lot of consolidation, right? So it was a rough one to hold, right? I would never be disappointed or mad at someone that really just said, you know what, I'm here, fuck it, I'm just closing my trade entirely. I just got trolled to break even a bunch of times. But that's the thing, if you actually manage your trade from the point that we make this 10 a.m. low, my stops were now here. Let me just mark this out. My stop was now at this level right after we formed this swing. So at 10:08, my stop now moved here. So I'm not scared to leave it there and to just hold on because I've already mitigated my risk. So this is kind of like if I would take a take profit, but not put my stops break even, which to me is allowable. And in this very specific case, it would have paid off reaching our relative equal highs, which align with data highs, right? Data highs and previous day's high right here, giving you quite a nice 3.26 R. So definitely a nice looking trade. Do we have any questions about this setup before we move forward? And by the way, within this consolidation, there was SMTs on both sides. As I always say, what do we look for? When there's SMTs on both sides, we wait for a raid. That raid didn't come on NASDAQ. It came on ES. We had a clear raid with SMT at a very important level, right? My 10 a.m. candles low, which then led to your distribution. I don't see any questions. Oh, perhaps. I see someone tapping. All clear. Awesome. Now, this is my move for the day. This is my daily expansion. Am I going to consider taking shorts? No. Is there a framework for it? Yes. But the thing is, with my specific model, I know that trading during lunch or into lunch is low probability. But in this case, what would you expect lunch to do? Well, if New York AM expands, I'm going to expect lunch to retrace. That's simple. So it's going to be a retracement. So you could find your retracement objective, which 15-minute chart, intraday range. What is the current intraday range at this point? Here, what is my retracement objective? This order block for first discount and efficiency. So could I justify shorting from high of day, which there was a lot of SMT present, but most importantly, I would look at SMT with key levels, which would be previous day high, right? That ES has not taken, and data highs. So there was important SMT. You did retrace to midnight open, so you could see some sort of retracement lower. You could frame a bunch of retracement ideas, and you had your first discount and efficiency as your retracement objective. And if we look right here, you had a breaker block form right here. This was invalidated. This traded back into. So definitely an entry on high of day. It's kind of nice to see with hindsight here, but as I said, after taking it along like this, and especially the painful psychology from just holding through this, I'm never taking a short here. But you could have justified taking that short, and if you look, actually, that whole move was what you want to take it part of pretty much, and then basically induce this level, and right after lunch we had that expansion lower once again. But unicorn right here. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I'm predicting the future here. So breaker block formed, but we did not trade back into this inverted fair value gap after we did it before. So your entry would have been lower here, right when we traded back into this. With this breaker block right here, nice standard deviations at this level. Let's plot them, aligning beautifully. 4 standard deviations before we had a huge retracement. So definitely a nice trade. And if we look at the stop, let's just look very quickly. From this point, you have fair value gap, and inverse fair value gap right here. So my stop, I just placed my stop actually 2 handles higher. So if I would use this inverse fair value gap, then that means my stop would be here. But I can place my stop, what is that? A few handles higher, so a little less than 2 handles higher to allow it to trade back into this order block. Quite happy with that. So definitely nice setup, nice little framework. You had all of this low resistance liquidity, so I would actually not have considered any partial here, gone straight for it. just because I anticipate that price will go quickly, and all I'll do is manage my stop loss accordingly. And as soon as you expand this much, retrace here and restart expanding, and we take out this liquidity, just to be a little more precise. This is important structure. My stop is moving to this high that is hidden by the trade position, but this high right here. So you had an opportunity to short, you had an opportunity to long. So no matter your bias, as long as you waited for it, you would have been fine. But to me, the real trade was this expansion. It was just very high resistance, but the result was there. Do we have any questions about this? And of course, as always, I'm not going to consider any other PM opportunities, right? It's either you longed and you had a huge trade, or you shorted and perhaps you could have held all the way down. But truly only setups I see. No questions. Awesome. Well, we're going to call it a day then, guys. We're going to see each other again tomorrow for another PA review. I noticed that I forgot to post the events. This is something I tend to do apparently, but it is now posted, so you can put your reminders there so you get notified when we start. There's going to be some nice announcements coming this weekend, so definitely be on the lookout for that. If not, I wish you all good luck trading tomorrow, and every one of you have a great night. See you guys. Thank you guys.